Just from a housekeeping perspective, you've all should have received a gift card to order your lunch. If you didn't get it on time to order your lunch today, then you have it for another time. Make sure you keep an eye on your emails to make sure you consume that gift card to order a lunch on us. From a housekeeping perspective, again, please mute yourself during the presentation. We will have time to open it up for some questions towards the end. You can always chat with us in the Teams session and post your question ahead of time if you'd like, and we'll get to them, towards the end. We will have a raffle for a high-end laptop for you to fill out the feedback form that you'll get at the end of this session. This webinar is recorded for future references. And I will, next slide, please, to introduce the team from a Microserve perspective in Intel. That's right, I have the control. So I should be able to advance the slide here. There we go. So I'm the VP of Sales. My name is Sylvain Jacob. I lead the sales organization at Microserve for about 35 Microserve employee as part of an organization that's now 425 employees in BC and Alberta. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. Our account managers are here to help you in navigating through our new times to help you with your productivity and IT needs. I'm supported today by a few folks from Intel. I have Hugues Morin, an old friend of mine out of Quebec City. We both come from the province of Quebec. He's now the sales director and data center lead for the Americas territory. Hugues.
Thank you, Sylvain. I was on mute. Great to be here. Thanks for having us.
And then supported also by Emiliano, field sales engineer, American territory, and then Melissa Endler, channel account manager. And Melissa has been working with us in putting this event together. So for the Intel folks, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. We hope you enjoy this event. And thanks for your support.
Thank you. Just a few words on Microserve. We're an IT service provider in Western Canada, operating in British Columbia and Alberta, primarily. So if you don't know us, please reach out through the chat and make sure I'll connect you with our account managers in each one of your cities. We certainly have a reputation for our IT procurement platform. So there's an echo. But we're a full IT service provider across the entire spectrum of your IT needs in the marketplace. So from the IT procurement services, our managed services practices, sometimes customers look for us to extend, either become IT for them, depending on their size, or extend their IT functions to areas where they want to offload some of their work to companies like Microserve. We certainly have a cloud practice across different practices of our cloud, your cloud needs, backup and disaster recovery, print management, talent acquisition, very strong in end user compute as well. That's what we're known for. That's why you'll hear from the Intel folks primarily around the end user computing and productivity for your customers, for your users. Project and consulting, IT security. We'll be talking about security as well throughout this conversation. And we've been having a tremendous success in the past 5 years with our audiovisual practice as well. So this kind of summarizes Microserve in terms of our different practices. We roughly, as an organization, about $145 million worth of revenue, thanks to all our customer support to help us get there. And we're continuing to grow year over year with now 425 employees. If anybody's watching our job board these days, we have about 70 jobs that are being posted right now at Microserve. to continue to support our growth in supporting our customers in the marketplace. So this is just a quick overview and a summary for Microserve, just in case you didn't know us already. So without further ado, I will pass it on to Hugh for the Intel segment of our presentation.
Thank you very much, Sylvain. As we said in the preparation for the webcast, to everybody joining us, or first of all, thank you. Thank you for investing the time in these tough times filled with Zoom fatigue for everybody. So we much appreciate, and because of that as well, we want this to be a conversation as much as we can. So we try to prepare a presentation that's going to be interesting and dynamic. Few foils, obviously. This is still IT, but we definitely want to have you guys stop us, raise your hand, ask questions as you see fit throughout the presentation. And it's a few seconds for me to fully get control, I guess. It will get there. So we, in line with Sylvain's introduction, right? We want to talk today about business continuity, security, and keeping employees productive during, especially during the times that we're living in through. And I think the new norm is going to be, at least for Intel, is going to be hybrid. It's not going to be fully locked down and everybody 100% from home, but I think we're going to see an increased balance in how employees are getting their work done and are keeping productive in a very dynamic environment. So thanks to my colleagues, Melissa and Emiliano, if you guys have questions that I'm not able to answer, I'll reach out to them. But let's have a little fun. So for those of you, before I get in the heart of the conversation and talk about our technologies related to business continuity and remote working specifically, I want to just set the things in context a little bit. For those of you, and as Sylvain said, often people work with our preferred partners, ISVs of the OEM, not maybe as frequently with Intel directly, but Intel as a company has entered a big right-end shift several years ago that we're in transformation, like a lot of companies out there. And we're shifting, to put things in perspective, from being a company that was very heavily or solely centered, if you go back enough in time, into the PC, being a PC-centric company, into being a data-centric company. So if you watch a little bit what's happening with Intel in the industry now, about half of our revenue comes from what we call data-centric businesses. So that's all our businesses in the data center, all our businesses in IoT and adjacent investments that we've made, like autonomous driving and Mobileye, right? So the company is much broader than it was maybe maybe I've had a look at Intel. The addressable market that we're shooting for right now from a silicon TAM standpoint is way north of $300 billion a year, right? So there's a lot of potential for growth for a company that today, is in north of 70 billions, if you see fit. So specifically, what you're going to see in that transformation as well, you're going to see Intel addressing technology at a platform level much more than before, right? So we're going to talk about platform and solutions optimized based on the ingredients that we enter into the ecosystem. That because as big as we are, with north of 100,000 employees and more than $70 billion in invoicing every year, we cannot do it by ourselves because we don't sell anything directly, right? So we have to work and partner hard with OEMs like Sylvain mentioned, but also like service providers like Microserve. So the probably the oldest or the first platform that Intel put to market is vPro. And if you heard about vPro, it's really a brand name in the market, in business, right? Not for consumer, but for business PC, that is trusted for 4 reasons mainly. Okay, it's performance, manageability, security, and also stability, right? Today I'm gonna drill down on a few angles a little bit more, but when you think about vPro, you should think about this is the best business PC that I can buy want to have a stable image, to have the most secure platform, to have the best manageability, including out-of-band manageability, which is hardware-based, and the best performance for a business laptop. So let's drill down a little bit more, and I still have control. That is good. So vPro, people think of vPro thinking it's a CPU because it's Intel is fundamentally, historically, was a CPU company. But vPro, when I say it's a platform, it is a platform. To have a vPro sticker on a PC, you need four things. You need the right CPU, you need the right chipset, you need the right networking because you want to be able to connect in various occasions, and you need the right software for this. So we work with our OEM partners to be able to have the validation. So when you buy something, the Microserve tells you it's a vPro platform, rest assured it's been fully validated by the OEMs. But we also do a bunch of software optimizations to ensure that you have the best performance in a business PC that you can ever expect, right? And you have a couple of examples here with Microsoft and Adobe. But really, when you have a business PC in your hand, what are you doing, right? You want to be productive, right? And using Office applications. You want to be, especially in the days that we're in. If you're like me, before you were on the road, on a plane or something, you were working on your PC, everything was fine. You get into the office in a fun pandemic, you plug the Thunderbolt dock, and now you're working with multiple monitors and you're collaborating on video conference while modifying documents. It's not the same performance requirements, and it requires specific optimizations as well. Same if you're doing content creation to be able to do those beautiful PowerPoint slides or video editing. And the performance that we get out of this software optimization, the hardware enhancements that we do, that our engineers are doing, and the collaborations with the OEMs is unmatched in the market. So if you compare the 11th gen, so the most recent platforms that you have in thin and light notebooks for business today, the numbers don't lie, right? It's pretty staggering. And this is before or comparing the 10th gen, right? I'm not even there myself, and I work for Intel. So if I compare my PC to an 11th gen, which is my dream today, right? It would be much more than the numbers that you're seeing. But let's say that you have the state of the art from last year, 10th gen laptop, you'd get, overall performance around 20% faster. But on things that, software optimizations can have a bigger impact. Look at this, right? 35% increased productivity in video call, right? Video editing 2.3x, and AI, and more. When you look at technologies from Intel, whether it's Xeon in the back end for cloud, or just doing inference on AI, or in the PC, what we've done is we're adding hardware extensions into the platform that work hand in hand with the software to increase the AI performance. And you might think, well, AI performance, right? What does that buy me? In a PC, right? AI. When we think of AI, we think about deep learning, machine learning model, very complicated models that are run on an HPC cluster in a farm at UBC, right? That's what I have in mind when I think AI. Not true. AI or machine-based decision is actually getting in all spaces, not only on the freaking telemarketing calls that we get all the time, right? These robots, they get into your PCs as well. So if you look at what we bring into the platform, look at the second column there, right? In the improved video conferencing. So you have AI, you have extensions. The most common, if you know these things, it would be VNNI, right? Neural network extensions in our CPU. That will help with all the background blurs, right? This nice inclusive Intel background is not my office, right? It's a virtual background. The computers today will do automatic AI-based image quality, getting your image better, especially if you do Adobe. I showed Adobe before, and you do content creation, video editing. It will improve balance, contrast, and get your image automatically better. And it will do neural noise cancellation as well. So it will make your images that much cleaner. This is the power of hardware optimization with software optimization, or hardware extensions working hand in hand with the software. On video, a couple of technologies that we introduced in the 11th generation as well. You probably know that Intel has very performant integrated graphic engines within the CPU. With the increase of video content as out there, we're also introducing XE graphics that are going to be discrete in the future. So based with software like QuickSync Video, that's what QSV mean, you'll see us keep pushing the envelope in the video space. Productivity, that's what we're known for, right? Obviously, in this case, this is the best you can have in a business laptop. And then when we talk platform, people tend to forget, but connectivity is of prime importance, right? God knows how bad can go a video call if you don't have good connectivity, right? So Wi-Fi 6 on all of these platforms today, which is tremendously important because your network in your office will be as good as the lowest common denominator on Wi-Fi. Not everybody realize that, but also Thunderbolt, right? So when you have a highly mobile workforce, to be able to get to your desk, plug one very nice cable, and everything will go through there from your gigabit internet speed or faster if you can afford it into all your peripherals, including your HDMI monitors, right? So this is pretty compelling. Before I switch to security, this is why I switch to security. Let me hit pause. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, so this is why, sometimes I've got customers coming to me. Why is Intel keep changing my processors, every 8 to 12 months? What I have right now is good enough. So I really like this message here because it really articulates to why we need to continue pushing the innovation in the envelope to maximize productivities of our employees, because the needs of our employees are changing, and this slide really talks to the requirement to continue to innovate.
Yeah, I think the world is constantly changing. Our needs are evolving. What we don't realize as well, and Microserve is at the corner of this, right? So when you have a business PC, we tend to see as users the foreground work that the machine is doing. We tend to forget the background work that also needed. So, I mentioned I'm not even a 10 gen today, right? I have a 9 gen laptop, and this week I was with colleagues, and our 9 gen laptops were not fast enough to work on some of the big pivot tables that we have, right? Yeah, they can do it, but you just feel that you're not productive because you're waiting again, or you're waiting for the machine to finish the number crunching, right? So we brought another Nook, right, a cool PC into the equation. Now we're crunching the number much faster. That's an 11 gen PC. That's going fast, right? So I think we in technology we tend to think that, hey, what we have is good enough. Experience has shown me even recently that once you put your hand into some of the newest technology, there's no going back. There's absolutely no going back. Thanks for the comment. But yeah, another way to look at this is a spiral of innovation, right? So Intel is pushing the hardware faster with that generate extra cycles. Then the software guys are bringing enhancements that fill that gap very quickly. Now the hardware is like choking, right? And then we produce new hardware to catch up, and it never stops. And think about it, the performance that you get out of your brand new machine today, once I don't know what your refresh cycle is. At Intel, we usually do 3 years, right? I wish we would do 2, but everybody has budget constraint as well, right? But if you get at the limit of 3 years, your PC is choking. Your PC is choking because the workloads have kept evolving throughout your ownership of that PC. Any other comments or questions? Thank you for that, Sylvain.
You're welcome. I think we can go forward.
Excellent. Now switching to security, Intel has a long history, especially with vPro, of putting some very specific security enhancements. I'll go deeper on some of them. But I think what you've seen is a double down on that commitment of having the most secure platform that happened around secure meltdown and Spectre, if you remember that side channel attacks in the server, right? But the sheer reality, or the reality here, is that the bad guys are also, like the software and the hardware, they're also getting better, right? And the number of attacks is going increasing, and the sophistication of these attacks is going increasing as well, right? So what you've seen the Intel engineers doing right now is doing work, but at all levels of the stack that you see there, right? And that's CPU for the microcode, the BIOS, the firmware, the hypervisor, virtual machines, containers, OS, applications. We need to be present and working with the ecosystem at all of these levels. But the reality is software only is not enough. Hardware only is not enough. And the best security combination is hardware based or hardware aided security. The latest and greatest from Intel with vPro is Hardware Shield. Hardware Shield is based on a technology called TXT, so it's trusted execution engine that's built into the platform that literally monitors the platform. And if something bad happens, it will refrain the CPU or the malware to take control to some of the underground or lower ground technologies. Another thing that the Intel engineers did from a security standpoint is CET, or control flow enforcement technology, and that will actually isolate malware in certain class of attack in memory, encapsulate them, and refrain them from executing and doing the malware or executing the malware that they're supposed to do. Threat detection is also very efficient from ransomware and crypto mining. So again, if you want more information on this, you can always contact Microserve. But I think the main message here is if you buy a vPro laptop, you know that you have the best hardware-based security that you can buy in business laptops. Another tidbit that I wanted, and I want to go fast so we have time for Q&A, but I want to touch a little bit on Evo. You might have seen Evo, and it might not be trivial for people to, okay, what is this new logo from Intel, right? What does that mean? And Evo doesn't replace vPro. Evo is a brand that is also in consumer. What Evo gives you is the right-hand side of this foil, right? When you have Evo, you have a platform that is optimized for ultimate responsiveness, and it's also AI-based. It will predict the next task that you want to do with your PC. It is optimized for battery life, so all the components that the OEM chooses to put in that laptop, if it has an Evo laptop, that's going to be the 9+ hours of battery life that you can expect from a good laptop, right? Wakes up in less than 1 second and has tremendous thin and light form factor. Doesn't replace anything that I talked about reliability, performance, security, business grade performance on vPro. This is just over and above. So you can have Evo laptops that are for consumer. If some of your kids want one, that will give you the right-hand side benefit. But if you choose an Evo vPro platform, you will have both of the benefits of the brands. This is another quick summary of the benefits of Evo. The one thing that I like a lot, because I used to travel, right now I'm like you, I travel from the bedroom to the kitchen table to the bicycle to the front of the computer. But when I did travel, sometimes you have very, very long days when you go to the airport at wee hours in the morning, right? With only 30 minutes of charge, you have fast charging as well in these laptops, and you get 4 hours of battery life only with a half an hour plugged into the wall waiting for your next flight. That's pretty compelling. I want to also, some of you might have had experience with vPro, and vPro has been around for, gosh, we must be close to between 15 and 20 years. I'm not sure exactly. I've been in Intel 20 years, by the way. I know I don't look that old, but I am. So vPro has been here for a long time, but vPro historically have been considered somewhat hard to implement, right? And it was almost reserved for larger organizations that had super performance management consoles and a very, very sophisticated team of IT staff. vPro is based on AMT, Intel Active Management Technology, which gives you these 4 benefits there. Remote power, so you can wake up a company, even if the OS is down, you can take control of the hardware. You can do hardware KVM at a distance, full remote access, full not only security image, but you can re-image a computer at a distance. So complete blue screen of death, right? Computer is dead. You're not there. You're in your home, and you can take control of the PC of the employee at the other side of the country in Quebec City and remake him or her productive and remotely in the blink of an eye, right? Without sending a technician on board. And historically, that's been hard to achieve. But now what you have is EMA, which is Endpoint Management Assistant, which is actually a free vPro activation software that is made available for you guys to implement much more easily vPro than it was. So beforehand, it was mainly done by large corporations. What we're seeing now because of the pandemic is an acceleration of demand for this technology, this type of technology, and an acceleration of activation for vPro as well because of the pandemic, right? And guess what? This model is efficient whether you're in the pandemic or not. Not sending a technician on the road to do a PC fix is very efficient. When you cannot go for health or pandemic reason, it becomes a necessity. So Sylvain and the Microserve team asked me when we were preparing, say, if you have an example, that'd be great. Give some examples of how this helped. And actually, I found one very recent. I think some of you are medical and or high-end education organization, right? This came from the UK, but that was the freshest case study I put my hands on, right? And I think the quote from the person from NHS there sums it all, right? In a medical environment, when you have a primary care nurse trying to take care of a patient, and you're able to remotely, the technician who sits remotely in his home or her home is able to remotely take control, solve the issue, and put the nurse back on track with taking care of the patient is a game changer. And it's a game changer in healthcare, but it's a pick and choose your industry. It's a game changer anywhere. So I put as well, I'm sure we're going to share the material with you folks, a few videos if you want to learn more about Emma, because I think Emma is also an important point to deploy more easily. And of course, lift a phone, call the team at Microserve, and they'll be able or willing and able to assist you.
Yeah, what's interesting here, Hug, is that when we talk to customers, we know that they've purchased vPro technologies for the past 3 to 4 years, yet they have yet to leverage that investment in their support operations. So I think this solution really makes the availability of vPro to a lot more customers that didn't have the systems in place to leverage it. So I think that's a great value for our clients.
And before it needed on-prem hardware, right, to be able to do that. And I forgot to mention, thanks for reminding me, that Emma is also cloud-based today. So that adds to the flexibility of the solution. All right, so enough. I think you wanted to have some good time for Q&A, right? I'm totally free to open up. In summary, if you look at what we presented today, right, best possible performance and productivity you're going to get out of a business PC platform. vPro Sticker gives you that. even better with Evo. That's going to give you the best manageability, the best security. Hardware Shield is a great example of that. The best stability, right? Stable image technology is part of the value proposition. I didn't elaborate on it, but our OEMs can give you, and Microserve can give you more details if you want. You are looking to a longer stable image life cycle for your PCs, and then more than ever, it's easier to activate and deploy. That's it for me, Sylvain.
Perfect. So we want to open it up to questions for our customers, either through the chat or live if you want to come off mute. I won't necessarily poke at anybody personally, but I do have a question for you if nobody comes up. We'll wait
Jason
a couple seconds. Jason, great. Thank you, Jason. Jason, you're up.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for the presentation, Hugh. So what we've seen recently is, in the last few years, is this trend towards smaller, lighter devices. And we've certainly been going that direction. But now we're seeing an emerging trend over the last year or so at Douglas College, where I am, for more GPU and to be able to do more complex tasks, and we're starting to look at sort of the gaming space devices and away from the business devices that we're familiar with. And you'd mentioned Intel and graphics. Can you expand a little bit on that? And is there going to be an opportunity, and maybe in I don't know how soon, but if you're able to sort of forecast, where we can continue to stick with our standard SKUs instead of looking around and going, oh, we need 20 of these, and then 8 months later some other person comes along and says, oh, we need a whole bunch more of these other types of things, and the SKUs change over time, right? So it makes it challenging from an enterprise perspective. Thanks.
Yeah,
great question,
totally.
Jason.
Great question. So XE Graphics was first introduced as an integrated graphics that was spun up as a discrete DG1. It was called discrete graphic first version, and you're starting to see some of these cards for desktop, but at very low quantity to be on. But it's like anything in technology. If I sit in front of you, Jason, I tell you that we're the most performance discrete graphic engine today. It's just not true, right? So that's the first version. But starting next year, you're going to see us being very competitive, and more. It's going to be a progression over time. I think you might want to look at professional mobile workstations as well. Some of them have interesting, and I'm not as close as I used to be for these, especially with the MNCs. Like the title says, I'm a sales director. I touch all of the Intel technology, but I'm also the data center lead. So I swim a lot more in data center than in client. But if you want to, we can follow up and give you a few options. But what I can tell you is the version 2 of graphics is going to be out next year. And starting next year, you're going to start to see more and more options, because what drives the need for you to explore gaming type laptops for your users in a higher ed type environment is not uncommon in the business environment as well, right? Whenever, and my spreadsheet with pivot table example from earlier is very aligned to that, right?
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question.
Anybody else on the team? We got 35 people on the call today. This is great. Great attendance.
It's awesome. Scott.
We got Scott
yeah,
coming up.
Thanks, guys. Just touching back on some of the new security, I guess, anti-threat capabilities built into vPro. I'm assuming these are all OS agnostic, and you're looking at behaviors and patterns that are consistent with compromise in a variety of OSs. Are you guys still working with software vendors to enhance their services and leverage your capabilities? Or are you thinking of this more as, a new paradigm in AV, where you're kind of moving away from software AV entirely?
Both, right? So I think a lot of the hardware-based hooks that you sell, call them hooks, but instructions or features that we're adding in the hardware. Some of it is going to be completely hardware agnostic, software agnostic, right? But a lot of it has to be enabled by the software ecosystem, right? So the collaboration, enablement, optimization that I talked about from Intel with the ISV ecosystem is, I think, only going to strengthen. If you've everybody's pretty excited these days about Pat Gelsinger coming back into the Intel family. You know, I met him, you know, personally several years ago in the data center space. He was managing our data center business before he went to EMC and VMware, and coming back from VMware only strengthened that position that he has, right? The work that we're doing with our ISV is only going to grow in importance. And people don't know, but if you take Intel or all the software engineers out of Intel, would probably not be number 6 from a software company in the world, just by sheer number of software engineers. And the work of these people is to really take these hardware accelerators, enhancers, security features, and making sure that the software takes advantage of it. So Scott, yeah. So I think you're going to see both, but you know, Pat and the management team have been very clear that the importance of software moving forward is going to maintain and increase.
Hi,
Perfect, thanks.
it's Ron here from Microserve. I have a question. We're seeing a huge play by another processor manufacturer. Starts with letter A, and I'll leave it at that. Any comments on that, how Intel positions itself versus the competitor?
Well, there's 2 big competitors that starts with an A. Let me, yeah, I can address both, right? ARM and AMD.
Right.
By the way, I cannot speak for them. They're both formidable competitors. If you again look at what Pat has published from a strategy standpoint, what he really wants us to get back to is leadership products in every category that we play in, right? So, and if you look at what I presented today, 11th gen vPro, this is, you know, the best, and it's very new, right? This is the best commercial platform that you can get. You can look at a benchmark, a specific benchmark, and say, hey, I'm the leader in this and this, or this game. But most, or a lot of the things that we see from a positioning standpoint is actually, it's not even real workload or representing of what people do really with a PC today, right? So I urge people to tell them and say, okay, look at the overall. It's not, you don't buy a car just for the sheer number of horsepower in the engine, right? I have a customer that makes the analogy all the time of the whatever Dodge Viper, you know, that can go 300 clicks an hour in a straight line versus a Porsche. So if you need to take a few curves, you know, even though the Porsche has a little less horsepower, 10% less horsepower, it might be the best car for you. So evaluate your need, look at the usage that you make of the PC, look at all the details, including platform stability, validation, and all of that. And I'm sure if you do that, you'll be convinced that Intel's products are best of breed. Going back to the rest of the ecosystem, Intel probably has never faced as much competition than today. And at the same time, Intel has never grown as much as today. And the reason for that is that we're expanding the aperture big time, right? Technology is being adopted in an infinite number of new applications today. When you talk about digital transformation, it touches so many places of our lives, right? Sylvain talked about digital signage and video today. My God, do I have business exploding in there? And if you link digital signage and vPro, right, and think about security, stability, think about digital signage in an airport, and think about a bad guy taking control of all the screens in an airport and starting pushing bad messages, the type of panic that it could there. So, remote manageability, business continuity combined, and that's something that today, when you see digital signage, there's a PC in the back of every one of these, right? And I see people migrating from addressing your other competitor question from earlier. I have a very large customer today looking at migrating all of their ARM-based business, the stuff that doesn't need a lot of processing power, into Intel because they want to do AI. And our platform has all these hardware acceleration hooks for AI. What they do with that, they do traffic analysis, gender analysis, consumer behavior with cameras, right? With VPUs, cameras, and PCs in the back of the screen. So tremendous.
That's a scary Big Brother watching kind of conversation.
No,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's all anonymized, right? And when you see these technology, you go in front of the only thing it actually knows, it's not that, hey, you're French Canadian, living in the States, blah blah blah. No, it's just say, okay, you're a middle-aged guy with an eye infection, and probably you want to have an antibiotic ad pushed to you now, right?
Yeah. Any other questions from the customers? Go ahead, Patel.
Ankur Kumar or Patel, but I think Patel should be your last name, right? Ankur Kumar.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. So I had one issue with one of the customer from the Microsoft. The customer raised that issue that some of the laptop getting heat and it's getting the hang with this new vPro Intel processor. So are there any resolution on that or improvement on that?
So I'm not sure I heard the beginning of the question. So Yaz, did you
I
say
think this is a support issue. We should take that offline. Please reach out to me, and we'll direct your question to the right area.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, this will get very quickly into the OEM. If
That's
I
correct.
complete EAT and ANG, it will get very quickly into the OEM, the BIOS, and how the platform is architected. Right?
Yeah, we need to escalate this question to the particular OEM that's behind from a support point of view.
Thanks for the question.
Hugues, we're hearing from the vendors. Maybe this is kind of an elephant in the room here, but we're hearing from the OEMs, some 8 to 12 weeks, 16 weeks of ETA. Can you give a perspective on what's going on from a supply chain perspective, from an Intel point of view, relative to what we're seeing in terms of product availabilities?
So for the customers attending the call today, you know that Sylvain, as your well-being at heart, right? Because he warned me from the get-go, say, Hugues, just get prepared because I'm going to ask you the damn supply question, right? Because we all feel it. The reality is that it's a combination of things, and it's a tough situation everywhere you look in the industry. When I joined when I took this specific role 2 years ago, which is selling for local companies that are assembling solutions locally in Canada, the team warned me and said, "Hey, we've been having strong demand and supply issues for 2 years now," and that was 2 years ago. So the issue that you're talking about and living direly today is not new or started 2 years ago, and it started because of the digital transformation that I talked about, right? Everybody needs to digitalize and agilize and get their business processes faster using technology, and that creates insatiable demand for Laptops, yes, but servers, IoT devices, edge gateways, computers everywhere, right? Because they're like the example of digital signage that I gave earlier. Now you throw a pandemic on top of this, right? And everybody that had a plan for doing a digital transformation project in the next 2 years has to do it in 2 months, right? and then accelerate the rest of the plan after. So it is a compound effect of a very strong market from a appetite for consuming technology and compute, combined with the fact that now areas of these industries where people could make it maybe without the same heavy use of technology have increased their demand or pounded their demands on top of the rest. So long story short, we're in a very tough spot as far as Intel. Our CEO, I'm sorry for that. Our CEO have been very public, that we don't have enough supply to meet demand. We've been increasing. Actually, we've not had, going back to what I've told you, we've not had the right supply to meet demand for a couple of years now, and we've been increasing 25% minimum per year our capacity. And now on top of that, when Pat took helm, he announced $20 billion of short-term investments this year. So if you look for me on LinkedIn, right, today you'll see I'll post aerial shots of 4 major sites in Israel where fabs are under constructions for Intel. That doesn't
So essentially, it's the compounded effect of supply and demand, being able to supply relative to a high increase in demand for technology that's creating the situation that we're in right now.
Totally. And what you see is Intel and a lot of companies investing into capacity, right? But that takes time to build a fab, bring it up, and even when you have the fab, just a full process of bringing a CPU to life takes about a quarter. And in addition to that, Sylvain, the other problem that we're facing right now is an industry-wide shortage of components. So even if we've increased year on year twice, 25% our wafer starts and our CPU yields at the end, today we lack the substrate, which is the materials that we need to put the CPU in a physical plate that will become, installed or come installed in a computer. So it's a very complex situation that will take a little time to regulate itself.
Any perspective on how long we still have to deal with this? Another 6 months, another year, or this is sustainable for a longer term?
I think as far as my headlights go and my vision go, it's going to remain complicated depending on the SKUs and the technology you want to buy. It's going to remain complicated for this year at least, and TBD on next year. But for example, customers are asking me this week, should I buy more to have a buffer inventory? And today we're asking the customer not to do that because that would just add, I call this the toilet paper order, right? You remember the toilet paper shortage at the beginning of the pandemic? People didn't need that much toilet paper, but everybody was buying more because they were scared. So right now we're telling people just order what you need, work closely with Microserve, with your OEM to get your best possible
forecast in
advance, work with your partner. That's the message.
Cool. Mark, Roman, I've seen that you came off mute there. Did you have a question?
Yes. How do I turn mute back on?
We'll take care of that for you, Mark. No problem.
I am sorry. Didn't mean to do that. I'll...
No, that's okay. We'll take care of it.
Actually, I think I did it too quick. I was very rude there, Mark.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's all good. All right. Any other questions from our customers today?
Everything is fair game. If Sylvain is hitting me with a supply question, I think I can handle anything.
All right.
Don't ask me how the stock is going to do. I don't know.
Yeah, Julieta and the marketing team here, any guidance of anything I missed, unless there's any other questions from the customers?
I think you're doing great, Sil. My apologies for my bad sound here.
That's all good. That's all good.
If we can do maybe one or two more questions, or if it's all good, you guys can still, everybody can still post your questions in the chat, and they can still be answered after the lunch and learn.
Yep.
And there will be a feedback form in the chat in a few minutes time. If you guys can fill that out, and we will be raffling off a high-end laptop today.
So why don't we go ahead and put the forms up so that we can do the raffle? Are you intending to do the raffle right away during the session?
I'm sorry, we will take all the forms and we will look at them tomorrow, and we'll do the raffle tomorrow.
I see. Okay, perfect.
If people need to actually provide some feedback on this fantastic lunch and learn, and we would like to just get your opinion on what you like to hear in maybe a future lunch and learn with Intel and Microserve. That would be wonderful. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank
you very much, Julieta.